So yeah, hopefully it's useful. I'm also happy to share the slides afterwards. So yeah, just to begin then, this does come very much from a place of passion, which, as I already mentioned right at the beginning, is a very natural thing, I think, for women to feel about the topic of women's health in the workplace. When I'm not working on this community, I have a few things that I do. One of them is working in an NHS setting, in women's health, physiotherapy, in pelvic health, not in a qualified role, and in a support role, an assistant role. But one thing that is really clear to me is that women wear and have a heavy burden of all of the kind of life course health challenges that we experience. And by the way, just to be very clear, we're talking about women and people who are assigned female at birth. So certainly don't want to be excluding anyone in this conversation when I talk about women, but just to be clear on this sort of the definition of that. Yeah, it's just very evident to me that as women, we experience this whole swathe of different health challenges throughout our life, which very much come from just the natural life course that we go on. And of course, along the way, we may also experience other health challenges that men too can experience. And of course, there's also a gendered consideration around men's health. But it is just really great to be starting to have greater awareness and dialogue and conversation and services that are outside of the NHS that are addressing some of these challenges. Of course, what we've seen recently over recent years is really great trends in more conversations around things like perimenopause and menopause, and potentially the antenatal and postnatal periods. But even then, I think it would be really fair to say, and I'm sure most of you would agree, that there's real challenges still with how this is handled in the workplace, the empathy, the understanding across the organisation, not just from women themselves, around some of these issues. And as I said, it comes from very much a personal experience of the work that I do in a clinical setting, also my work as a yoga teacher and the conversations that I have with women and regularly at the end of classes, the things that they, surprising what people end up sharing at the end of a yoga class. And then also my work in workplaces, supporting with workplace wellbeing services. I also have 2 babies. I've been through a fertility journey twice, and I'm just, you know, a very woman that is very passionate about talking about this work. So what we're going to cover just in this next bit of time that we've got, bear with me, we're not moving for some reason on the slides. Hang on a moment. All right. You can see the presentation, can't you? Check the chat. Can someone let me know? Yeah, for some reason. Okay, all right. Oh, there we go. Working. Do you let me know though on the chat if you can, someone? Or unmute and just let me know. Yes, great. Thank you. All right. Lovely. So we're going to have a little look at why is this important and what are some of the evidence and the stats that support it. Normalising and getting familiar with some of the key health conditions. And in this particular presentation today, I'm not going to kind of get into any of the particular conditions and symptoms, but certainly happy to expand on some of them on another occasion. Some practical steps for women, for creating women's health friendly workplaces, enabling women to speak up and get the support that they need, integrate wellbeing into reviews and wellbeing check-ins, and also improving staff engagement and a sense of belonging. So First of all, I just want us to have a little bit of a move and a jiggle. So I'm making the assumption that you might have been sitting at a desk for a little bit of time, or at least kind of had your head in some work, even if you weren't sitting down. So just if you don't mind, just make sure that your hands are empty, and that you're ideally sitting, but if you want to be standing, that's fine. It might be that you've already done enough sitting. And I just want you to make sure that your feet are touching the floor and that you can relax your shoulders, and just take a few shoulder rolls, that's all. Nice. And just whilst we do this, I'm going to chat to you about something really nice that my yoga teacher shared in my yoga class yesterday, which was a really lovely way of thinking about how you feel and rationalizing how you feel when things feel a little bit heavy. And certainly with women's health, whether it's that you're experiencing your menstrual cycle or some other symptoms attached to a women's health challenge that you're experiencing, or some symptoms, sometimes it can be quite encompassing, right? It's your body, it's your mind. And so this little tale that she was telling, I thought I'd share with you. If you haven't already, make sure you do a little bit of rolling of shoulders, perhaps stretch your arms out, do some little rolls of your wrists. You just go with what feels useful for you. Your body usually tells you. And if you're not very good at tuning into that, which loads of people aren't, I completely, it's a very much sort of an in the moment thing. Sometimes it's hard to move, isn't it? Then just kind of stick with those little shoulder rolls, maybe a little roll of your neck. But the little tale was just this monk and his, followers and his disciples. Always starts with a monk. And one of his followers sort of said, "My water is really salty, and it makes me not want to drink it." And he said, "Well, I think I can help you with that." And what he offered his disciple, his follower, was a larger vessel of water. And he said, "Pour your salty water into here, and I promise you it won't taste as bad. You'll be able to drink it." So he poured the water in and he drank the water, and of course, he couldn't taste as much salt. So the heaviness that we might feel when we're experiencing some of these health challenges or other things can be softened, made more easy to handle if we can create more space. So we can do that in the body. We can do that by stretching our arms up, by taking bigger breaths, expanding our ribs, getting a bit bigger in our physical body, giving ourselves time and space to just take a moment. We can also fill our lives with other things too, so that the heaviness and the challenge of the things that we're experiencing feels less intense. Because yes, we might be experiencing some challenges with fertility, but actually if we can fill our lives with other things, when we do have to think about that particular thing, it can feel less intense and less consuming. So hopefully that's useful for you to take with you for whatever you're experiencing for the rest of the week. And it's definitely a nice one when we're talking about women's health. So hopefully you had a little bit of a stretch and a bit of movement. Just on my little anecdote, my little tale, I really like this quote: "Just because you carry it well, it doesn't mean it isn't heavy." And I think a lot of women probably can identify with this feeling, which is often we are juggling so much as women: our physical health, things at home, relationships, careers, all of the different things. And often we're doing it really, really well. Often we might not be as well, but often we're doing it very well on the outside. And that doesn't take away from the fact that it is a huge load. So I know just personally, this little quote definitely helps me quite often when I'm feeling like I'm sort of powering through, but then also a little bit resentful of, the fact that I might have my period, or, just still obviously experiencing postpartum challenges at the moment. So sometimes it's not visible to other people, but really important to acknowledge yourself that it can still be really heavy. So a few statistics. So women make up 51% of the population, so it's a bit of an obvious one, and 47% of the workforce is female. Obviously, some specific workforces have a higher weighting of female employees. So I spoke to someone yesterday who, I think she said it was 80% female. The NHS, so the setting where I do my clinical work, is 77% female. So it's also really useful for you just to have a think and reflect on the organisation that you work in, and think about how much of the workforce is female, and therefore what attention should you be paying on these sort of gendered health challenges, whether it's to do with supporting men or women. We spend 90,000 hours of our time at work. So I'm sure you guys have heard this one plenty, but it's 1/3 of our lives. One of the other thirds of our lives is sleeping. So that really only leaves another third. So just really significant to remember this when we're thinking about well-being in the workplace in general, right? Just to always come back to this, because it just really helps to like back up and validate how important it is to think about health, whatever it is that we're talking about in the workplace. Because I think sometimes we can forget that and lose sight of that and think about well-being in the context of our personal lives, but it absolutely has to be integrated into how we work and the way employers support us and how we meet our employers with that as well. So only 50% of businesses have a wellbeing strategy. So that just generally gives us a really good top line view of actually, if it's only 50% of businesses that have a wellbeing strategy, then how many of them are actually looking strategically and having policies and programs to support key health challenges such as menstrual cycles, fertility and menopause. And as I did already acknowledge, I know there's been a huge shift in menopause policies, and there tends to be something in there about fertility, although, you know, without being critical of the NHS, I have to say they definitely did not meet me where I needed them. And I think fertility is a tricky one. And I can definitely recommend some organisations that are good at helping to guide on this. And then, of course, menstrual cycles, which is even rarer. But also there are some good organisations helping to support on helping organisations to set up good policies and programmes to support women just on their monthly cycles. So there's a couple of really important pieces of research which I definitely would want to point you to, and they are at the end of the presentation. One of them is some work by RCOG, which is the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So they've got an amazing piece of work called, it's gone from my mind, like Better for Women, I think is the name of the work, but definitely have a look at that, led by Professor Leslie Regan, who's the president of RCOG. A couple of little quotes here. So the evidence shows that healthy women are the cornerstones of healthy societies. And whether you think about that really practically or just anecdotally, I think we probably kind of really do feel that. And then also when we get it right for women, everyone benefits, both in the workplace and beyond. So both of these pieces of work, this work by RCOG and the other one, which I'll get onto, which is the Women's Health Strategy for England, which was launched in 2022 by the UK government. Both of those have quite reasonable acknowledgements of the role of this awareness and this conversation in the context of work. So really useful resources for you as you think about this for your workplace. So just kind of going right back to some of the challenges around women's health. A lot of it comes from really early stigma and biases and behaviours that have existed in our lives as we have grown up. And this actually comes from the RCOG report, but it's research by Plan International, who is a charitable organisation. But the stats here show us some insight into some of the stigmas and insight and beliefs that we have. So 48% of girls in the UK are embarrassed by their periods. 4 out of 5 girls feel uncomfortable discussing their periods with their teacher. And 49% of girls have missed an entire day of school because of their periods, of which 59% have made up a lie or an alternative excuse. So my point of sharing this is, if we are doing this when we are children at school, at the age of 9, 10, you know, there's some girls are starting their menstrual cycles very young, 9, 10, up to, you know, 15, 16, when we might be moving on from school, then it's not surprising that this stays with us. If this is the culture that we are raised in and that we have become normal with, then it's unsurprising that this stays with us. Even if we don't believe this to be right, it's unsurprising that this stays with us as a feeling. And there's some more recent research by a women's health product organisation called Day, and it's another organisation I'd really recommend you have a little look at because they've actually got some great resources for workplaces. But in some research they did, they said that 2 in 3 women surveyed, when they did some research within organisations, said that they are not comfortable discussing women's health challenges in the workplace more widely than just on a one-to-one basis with perhaps a trusted colleague. And 62% say that female-based health issues had impacted them in the workplace. So that really does not make sense. It doesn't paint a very good picture for where we're coming from when we enter the workplace, and these things that stick with us. And I don't know everyone's age in the work on the call and how long you've been in the workforce. But I'm 40 and I still really resonate with these statistics on this page. Yeah, I still think, oh, it's awkward if I leak on my period, or that I might have had some painful boobs because of my period, and wouldn't mention it at work. So these are things that sadly is where we're coming from, and why this whole awareness piece is so important. Some other stats from the RCOG report. So this is about barriers to care and some of the reasons why we don't take action and do more to support our health. So 22% of women felt unable to seek care because they're too busy. Okay, is this because we're managing so many different loads? 24% felt unable to seek care because of the embarrassment about the condition. So this is sort of clinical level kind of conversations. And 24% feel unable to seek care because of embarrassment about their body image. And 15% feel unable to seek care due to feeling judged. So this is about accessing clinical care, NHS care, and the reasons why people didn't take action. So a bit like those other statistics from sort of young people in schools, this is really devastating that women feel like this. And so whilst we might have women who are really using their voice to advocate for other people or advocate for other issues, unfortunately, it looks like these are still quite significant percentages. They're a bit low, but they're still quite high. In terms of, if you look at your workforce and look at this percentage into your workforce, what that might mean people are experiencing, and how they're not putting themselves and making themselves a priority. Perhaps they're overloaded with other priorities, and not therefore taking action on health challenges they're experiencing. So in terms of prioritising some key areas, these are the key things that we really want to make sure that we're looking at when we look at our organisation and ourselves. So it's menstrual health and gynecological conditions. So that's obviously things like polycystic ovaries, cysts, fibroids, all that kind of things, all the different things that affect women's gynecological health. Many women experiencing different surgeries and procedures throughout their life course relating to gynecological conditions, and these are things that require time off, they require recovery, they might be causing pain, they might be causing symptoms that require women to be changing their underwear throughout the day, or wearing particularly different clothes. Perhaps the organisation you work in has particular need for uniform and certain things to be worn. So these things all need to be considered when we're looking at these policies. Fertility, pregnancy loss, and postnatal support. And I know that that's a huge amount of different things in one bullet point. Very, very aware of that. But all of those things need to be considered sensitively and carefully. Perimenopause and menopause. So the perimenopause obviously can start particularly early for some people, but it isn't uncommon for perimenopause to start in the late 30s and early 40s. So really just being aware of this and making sure that education and support and empathy is there for your workforce. Mental health and well-being generally, so of course just having that in there, but just being aware of the impact of the mental health of females in the workforce, just generally, as well as an impact of some of these physical health challenges. Cancers and screening. So obviously we've got all cancers to consider, but obviously there's particular cancers that are affecting women specifically. The health impact of violence against women and girls, and the consideration of domestic violence and the health impacts of that on women, and also healthy aging and long-term conditions. So this is all directly from that other piece of work that I have pointed you to, which is the Women's Health Strategy for England. And there's a whole provision in there around workplace, women's health in the workplace. So just having this in mind as you're thinking about this, which I check in the chat. Okay, so I've mentioned a couple of times taking a life course approach, and this is a really useful graph to have a little look at to illustrate the reproductive and sexual health needs of women as we go through our life course. And when I saw this, it sort of really helped to remind me, just like, wow, like it's just non-stop, right? It's non-stop for women, isn't it? So I think, even sharing something like this in your organisation to just really remind everyone, both, women themselves, to help offer sympathy and empathy around this, but also to help educate men. And to consider how this works alongside the cycle of your organisation, and particularly if you could start to consider, the ages of the women in your workforce. So just have a little think about the scale of things. I'm just using menopause and perimenopause as the example, but we can have a look at these statistics another time and in these figures looking at other health challenges. Menopause is a really great one to have a look at because the numbers are so significant. So there's over 3.5 million female workers aged over 50 in the UK. So most of them in some way will be experiencing some symptoms of menopause or perimenopause. And we have an ageing workforce, so you don't need me to tell you that this issue is only going to grow. 10% of women leave their jobs due to the impact of menopause, which is really sad, isn't it? To think that that's what's happening, that we're not feeling like we can continue to work because of the impact of the symptoms that we're experiencing in menopause. Many women reduce hours or pass up promotion opportunities. So perhaps the symptoms that women are experiencing are so heavy and challenging and unsupported enough that you're not taking opportunities for promotion. 45% of women felt that menopause symptoms impacted on their work. Only 25% felt able to tell their manager the real reason for absence. So that goes right back to those figures that we were talking about to do with health when we're talking to young people in schools. Reasons for non-disclosure are things like privacy, embarrassment, and having an unsupported manager. So this is all from a CIPD report on menopause and perimenopause, and they've got a few good resources on different women's health issues. So definitely another place to have a little look if you're gathering evidence and doing any planning. So just wanted to have a really quick look at this case study, which is some new work from the FA, the Women's FA. And so this is working in partner with a service provider called Well HQ. So it's a set of initiatives to support female health across the full business. So athletes, coaches, support staff, everyone in the organisation. And there's 3 key activities. So it's training. So this is around menstrual cycle and performance, special kit for women, nutrition in football, injury risk and resilience, so how to cope when you do have injury, and pelvic health, fertility and pre and postnatal, and then cultivating healthy environments. So that's mandatory training across the whole organisation now. Female athlete health leads. So in each of the teams, there's now a female athlete health lead who acts as an accountability partner, a leader, a person to disseminate information on these programs, on these modules, on these training opportunities, and act as your kind of well-being champion, I guess. And then best practice guidelines and policy on pregnancy and postnatal care, menstrual cycle health, and also pelvic health. So there is a link there if you want to read a little bit more about that. I can share that. So just getting a little bit practical then on how we can create more supportive women's health friendly workplaces. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I think it's probably a slicker way to say it, but anyway. Education and conversation, I think, is the main thing. It's the most important thing, is talking to everybody in the organization, partnering with the women in your business and finding out what matters to them. So where are they at? What things are they experiencing? What things do they feel that they might be experiencing in the future? And you can look at that life course approach to kind of have a discussion around that and talk to them about what support looks like. You know, I think quite often it's easy to go very generic and sort of just copy examples of what other organisations have done. Like, see tampons in a bathroom in one place, so you put them into your bathroom in your organisation. That is not enough. You have to talk to the women in the business to see if that's useful. Okay, it probably is, because it's very handy. But, you know, it's more than just doing the basics and the obvious. It's about talking to women and finding out what works. And the world of work is changing. You know, I mentioned before that I'm sort of on this maternity leave at the moment, but actually I'm going into my NHS job on Thursday with my baby for an hour to sit in on a meeting. They're cool with it. You know, do we, I know the actual baby itself is not a health challenge, but he brings with him various different health issues, but you know, that is enabling me to participate in an important conversation that's going to happen in my workplace, because they're open to that. I think we need to see more babies in workplaces to make women feel supported on their journey, in their postnatal journey. What do you think? So just thinking a little bit about talking with women in the business about what would be useful and what would be a bit of a game changer to them staying in your organisation. How can we support retention? You know, it says in this day research, this new research that I've just got like little scribbled down notes about here, that's why it's not in the presentation, 70% of employees would be willing to change employers to have better women's health benefits. 70%. That's a lot of women thinking about, okay, how can I get from my employer better help and more support with these things that I'm experiencing, whether it's postnatal support or something to do with fertility or a long-term women's health condition that you might be experiencing. Also, another one here, productivity loss. Apparently, I don't know the source, but it's through their own survey that they did. Productivity loss was 9 days apparently per year per employee. That's a lot. We'll have to have a little look at that one. So sharing stories, so absolutely crucial, isn't it? Not just to be sharing voices from across the organisation, but voices from leadership, voices from men as well, perhaps talking about fertility experiences or time when they were off during paternity leave, talking about stress and mental health perhaps, because that's a tough one. So sharing stories is really crucial so that everyone in the organisation can see the demonstration of the organisation's support around the topic. Create working parties, resource groups and champions, and make sure there's working groups working on these issues. Implement policies and processes and discuss them. So it's not good enough to just have in your manual a little couple of paragraphs on fertility or a guidebook on menopause. And as I said, I've acknowledged that there's been some really great progress in menopause education in the workplace, but make sure that women are accessing and aware of this education and these services way, way before they're even reaching menopause, so that when someone's coming into your organisation and they might only be, 30, they're aware of the support that you have. Potentially they'll be with you for, a significant amount of time, or maybe they'll experience menopause earlier on in their life than they would have expected. So just making sure that these policies aren't just there buried in an intranet and only relevant when someone decides that they're perhaps going to go on a fertility journey. And use them as a way of promoting and showing your support for women's health in your organisation, whether that's at the recruitment level or just day to day in your communications. Offer services, so just make sure you have the services. So of course things like EAP, which I'm sure most organisations are now managing to have, but make sure that you promote the EAP and that you make sure that employees are aware that EAP can be really useful for very, very, very specific things. And I'll give you an example. I accessed my EAP through the NHS to support my fertility journey. Okay, so I think sometimes we can think of EAP as just like, oh, I'm having a bit of a tough time. My boss said I could ring and access this support, but it can be over very specific things. So making sure that your workforce is aware of that message, that they can tap into that resource in most cases for very specific things. It could be around just coping with a gynecological condition, for example. And your EAP should have a provision for trying to seek therapists and support that is that people that have experience, or maybe not direct experience, but some special interest in that subject. Coaching, women's circles, so making sure you hold space for women within your organisation, giving them a chance to have a voice and to speak, and also screening opportunities for more routine things like breast cancer screening and that kind of thing. Support, train and reward managers who are active in supporting these initiatives. So really sort of recognising those managers and leaders that are embracing this approach, so that your workforce can really believe and see that it's genuine. And then offer a speaking up mechanism. So this often looks like a generic email address, so freedom to speak up at organisation. But what it gives the chance is a confidential way of employees sharing and talking about things that they need. So this, of course, is a really great thing to have regarding any health and well-being challenge and issue, but particularly around women's health, where we know there's this challenge around embarrassment and stigma. So making sure that you have some sort of speaking up mechanism so that women can request the support that they need. And I've mentioned empathy a few times, and it's always good to just have a little discussion or sort of thought around how to lead with empathy. So I thought this was a nice little takeaway directly from Instagram. So engage with an open heart, make an effort to understand, practice patient listening, acknowledge feelings, take their experiences seriously, hold space, and yield to compassion and kindness. So really great one if you're educating managers and leaders in the workforce around having empathy, because I do think it's a skill that a lot of people really challenge to feel difficult to tap into, and that's fine. Like, not everyone is the same, not everyone is soft and fluffy, but yet there's lots of different types of personality and skill sets that hold management and leadership positions. So educating just on what empathy is a really good step for getting people to do better with supporting women's health challenges in the workplace, because perhaps a man in particular maybe will never understand what it's like as a female to experience menstrual cycle, right? That's fine, we can't expect that, but if they can tap into empathy, then they can start to hopefully help women to feel more supported. And this is a Matt thing. So Matt shared this. It's from his human-centered design. So it's a great tool that you can take away with you, which is an empathy mapping canvas exercise. So I'm sure you might have heard him talk about his canvases. It's all about human-centered design, which is this great approach to kind of thinking with the person in the middle of the issue. But this can be really handy if you are having a leadership or management conversation about what you might want to do around this issue, and just literally on one page have a little think about what it is that you might want to tackle and offer to women in your workplace to support them better. And you can even use this directly with women themselves. But it's just a great kind of one pager really to kind of capture ideas quite quickly and freely, with putting women at the centre of it. And yeah, that's the little list of resources and references. So as I said, there's the ARCA report, the Women's Health Strategy, some great resources from CIPD on pregnancy, menstruation and menopause. And then also a really nice book. This is specific around pregnancy in the workplace, but it's a really great one called Carry Strong. So if you've got pregnant women in your workplace, really nice maybe to have a couple of copies at hand, or perhaps recommend it. So love to know if there's any questions, just having a little look. Yes, Jane, happy to share the slides, no worries at all. No worries, Kat. So benefits and policies can help, but if the work environment attitude don't support women, then it's difficult to speak up. Really, really true. I agree with your point to train and educate managers and to encourage open conversations that will drive culture change and benefits over time. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's about having everything, isn't it? And sort of making sure that we have the policies and the benefits there. But yeah, absolutely starts with the conversations and the education and the storytelling. Storytelling is so powerful, isn't it? So making sure that we get that bit going. Tell you what, the women's circle stuff is really nice. So I can share. There's a few things I've said I'd share on top of this. Oh, that's it. The stuff from Day. But yeah, women's circles can also be really nice. So it's an opportunity to host a discussion with women in your workplace. So you do it over a lunchtime, and really there isn't, a theme or a topic, apart from maybe perhaps an ambition that you might want to support women better. And then you just let them talk and someone takes some notes. And, you obviously have to set some rules. It has to be a safe space. It has to be confidential. And yeah, find out what women are really experiencing and thinking, and then build support program around that. So any other questions or anything anyone wanted to chat about? Love to hear from you guys.
Hi, I was just going to say, I think a lot of this that we don't or often think about is women themselves, in terms of we've felt like, we talk about men's mental health and how men aren't comfortable to talk about it, but I think as women we've been grown up to like just get on with it and not talk about it, and it's kind of seen as a bit of a weakness. And that what I've seen is actually men are quite receptive to this thing, but it's the more challenging thing is getting women to feel comfortable to talk about it openly, and particularly in front of men. But yeah, I found that it's surprisingly has been more the women, because we've been so ingrained to like keep it, it's a taboo and don't talk about it. So yeah, to open up those conversations, I found that it's been harder with women than as with men.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess there's fear, isn't there, probably for a lot of women, like what, do I admit that I'm thinking about having fertility treatment next year? Like, because that then means that I'm going to be experiencing some health challenges relating to that, needing time off, then obviously hopefully having a baby. So like how do we become more comfortable and safe having those conversations? Yeah, you're right. Like, it is really difficult. There's both, right? We've got to challenge. There's both conversations that need to be had, like conversations with men, but supporting women to feel more confident and working out what that looks like. But potentially with better policies, say better policies supporting fertility, maybe then women would feel like it's okay.
Yeah,
be open about that. And yeah. I admit that I didn't. I had my second embryo transfer after 2 failed transfers, so I'd already like had time off and it wasn't feeling great and sad. I was emotionally like spent, and then had my third transfer, and which was fortunately successful. So then was like giddy and excited that we were on a positive path. And then when I actually decided to tell my employer, which was relatively early because of the physical nature of the work with patients, I sort of pretended that it was new information, and I just felt like such an idiot. I was like, yay, did a pregnancy test. But actually I'd been through all of this stuff, and I sort of just was then becoming a bit of a liar as well. Like it just didn't sit very well. I'd had to lie to them. They now know, but eventually I confessed. But yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. Mila, absolutely. Once I found the courage to open up to male colleagues about debilitating period pains, they were so receptive, but it took a while to build the trust and feel comfortable to talk about this. Yeah, I do really feel like menstrual cycles in particular are tough, aren't they? Why is that? It's just like, there's just like that data shows, it's in us from so young, isn't it? Not good.
But it's also, most of those male colleagues may have female partners or even daughters.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I anticipated this would be the shock of their life, when most of them were like, yeah, no, my fiance struggles with it as well. She barely sleeps when she's on her period. Or, yeah, totally, our daughter has gone to multiple checkups to try and figure out what the problem is. But I think if you say the safety needs to be there first, and there need to be indicators of it, whether it's through policies, whether it's through your female leaders speaking openly about it, whether it's through seeing sanitary products in the bathrooms that gives you an indication this is receptive. Otherwise, few people, I feel like, may be brave enough to see how it lands if they share that.
Yeah, I think there's also just there is a societal shift in how we talk and think about things like menstrual cycles, isn't there? Like, I can still remember horrible language from, lads at school or whatever, talking about, her being grumpy because she's got her period, or they wouldn't even be using language like period, they'd be saying something far more slangy. But I guess we don't hear that as much anymore, and so maybe in time there would be a shift, but perhaps it's just slow. Because I'd be really shocked if I heard anyone insinuate that I was grumpy because of my period now, but I suppose it must still happen. And it's just, really awful, isn't it, that would even be aired or discussed.
Yeah, but it's even things like, I caught myself and how conditioned I'd been by that experience at school. When you go to the bathroom to change your sanitary towel, I'd kind of stuff it under my jumper or put it in a pocket, so God forbid anyone knows I'm using a product like that. And after I was like, that's ridiculous.
It is.
Well, it's that advert, wasn't it? Sorry, I don't know if you can see me. I've had to join the mic. Oh, can you? It says my video's off. I've had to join on my phone because it wasn't working. Anyway, it's like the advert for the tampons. I remember a while ago, and I think it was Tampax, and it was the tampons. Oh, it's all right, they look like sweets. Yeah. So if one falls out of your bag, no one's gonna know what it is. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it is crazy. I've got a friend as well who's she's a senior police officer, and she uses a Moon cup, and the head office at the police headquarters that she works at, that is quite a modern building, so there is actually shared bathrooms. Like the hand basin facilities are shared, so the toilets are separate, but the hand, and she was washing she had to wash her Moon cup in underneath her hand like this. I mean, and that's sort of fair enough, like maybe you'd want to be be a bit private about that anyway, but it was just like, oh gosh, that's really and then someone came in and she sort of had to hide it in the sink and sort of stand there until he went into the toilet. It's a funny old thing, but we absolutely need to sort of be paying more attention to it, don't we, in the workplace? And there are some examples of organisations that are doing it quite well. So when I post the resources, I'll share some links as well. But yeah, anything else that anyone wants to chat about? Any great work anyone's managing to do on this? You can share if you want, within your workplace. What have you?
We're just starting to look at it now.
Yeah.
There's different views. We're getting leadership buy-in. Obviously, it's something we want to do, but then it's looking at, do we want to implement separate policies? I think the fear is having different policies for different sort of areas and topics. We're obviously going to miss something, so it's just finding the right approach for our organisation, really. But yeah, we're right right in the early stages of that.
Yeah, great. Well, good luck, and make sure you connect with
Thanks
the
for all the
community.
information.
That's all right, and make sure you put it out there to the community if there's anything that we can help with, or have a further chat about.
Yeah, thank you.
Get some peer support. Anyone else?
Yeah, we've done all the menopause friendly, and now we're doing the menstruation friendly, and then there's a fertility.
yeah.
It would be nice, wouldn't it, if they were all together, because it does feel that thing of like you're doing this friendly puzzle and this, and it would be like if there was an all-encompassing women's health friendly accreditation, it would just be a lot easier.
Yeah, but they are great frameworks, so I guess it's handy that it's there and it can be applied. Yeah, great. Amazing. All right, well, I will let you enjoy the rest of your lunch break, guys, and hope you can have a little bit of time to yourselves before you have to